So this next section, this next part of chapter 11 of Hosea, is the main question is, can a father stop being a father? So in the previous section, we confronted the problem from Israel's side. Can Israel abandon their sonship? Well, now we're going to look at it from God's side. Can God renounce his paternity, his selection of Israel as their sons, as his son? And notice this you, how can I give you up, O Ephraim? So God is speaking here directly to the Israelites. This is a direct dialogue. He wants an answer, and he doesn't get it. He has to look inside himself for his paternity. It doesn't. In the end, it doesn't really matter what the Israelites do. God's fatherhood depends completely on himself. And there's this reference here. How can I make you like Admah? How can I treat you like Zeboim? These are two cities that were completely destroyed, similar to Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah are obviously more famous of the two. So here, God is considering the possibility of renouncing his paternity, his fatherhood. And if he does that, he would destroy the Israelites, like Admah and Zeboim, like Sodom and Gomorrah. They'd be completely destroyed. But my heart recoils within me. My compassion grows warm and tender. I'm just going to jump down. For I am God and not man. So my heart recoils within me. He's reacting to this possibility of the complete destruction of the Israelites. And God doesn't want to do that because he is God and not man. He doesn't go back on his word. Ultimately, God can't renounce his paternity. He is Israel's father no matter what. And I've also highlighted this phrase, I will not execute my fierce anger. Again, this goes back to the idea of God's wrath. Remember, God's wrath is something that's for the good of the people. It's not something, my prophets professor said this, and I thought it was a good way of phrasing it. God's wrath is something that happens. It's not something that exists. So it's an act. It's not an attribute of God. Like we wouldn't say that, like when we talk about God's love or God's unity, it's an idea. It's a term that's used to describe certain actions that God takes, always for our benefit, but it's not a part of his nature like his love is. Notice also, I will not execute my fierce anger. So it had been put in act, but it's not carried all the way through. And then finally, God is the Holy One in your midst. So whenever we speak about God, we have to hold these two realities in tension. And that's just expressed very well here. The Holy One, God's utter transcendence, his utter unknowability. He's completely other than us. He's something completely different. The Holy One, completely pure. Yet he is also in our midst. So he's still present among us in a very real and powerful way. And in the final part, it's called the lion and the birds, because the Lord will roar like a lion, and his sons will come back like doves, trembling like birds. So notice in the first part, in the first part of this chapter, son was singular. There was just one son, the Israelites. But here at the very end, it's his sons. It's plural because God's sonship doesn't just stop with the Israelites. In the end, everyone is called to be a son of God. And that's what happens with Jesus in the incarnation, when God became man in Jesus, and then through the establishment of the church. It was all to bring everyone, all peoples from all times and all places, into the sonship, into God's sonship, into being sons of God. And then notice the word trembling. They shall come trembling, shall come trembling from the west. They shall come trembling like birds from Egypt. This tremble, this is a very natural response of the people throughout the Old Testament to the presence of God. Whenever God manifests himself in a very real and powerful way, for instance, like the roaring of like roaring like a lion, is just an indication of the people recognizing the presence of God. It's not necessarily trembling from fear. And the Lord will return them. I will return them. Again, always the Lord's initiative to their homes. It's not just to my home, it's to their homes. The Israelites have a certain amount of independence. This is the future mature relationship. We started in the very beginning with the early relationship between the Israelites and the Lord, and we're ending here with a mature one. Their homes, independence. Notice also, they shall come trembling like birds from Egypt. In the beginning, it was the Lord teaching Israel to walk, and here they come back of their own accord. And so the purpose of this chapter is that God freely chose the Israelites as his son. And this communicates God's free love for Israel and all his children, including us today, so many centuries separated from the Israelites. We are also sons of God. And this is to help the reader, whoever that is, to help them understand the face of the Lord, to understand the face of God as a father, and not, it's to help correct any maybe misguided images of God that the reader might have.